Welcome to the Civic Hub. The Civic Hub is a shared community space for grassroots and small nonprofit organizations working to make lives better for everyone in Waterloo Region. Partner organizations come from a range of fields: environmental justice, democratic reform, arts and culture, anti-poverty, anti-racism, human rights, ethno-cultural and newcomer support, technology, peace and non-violence, spirituality, and well-being. On the show, we welcome one of our partners to the Civic Hub. Today on Welcome to the Civic Hub, we have Debbie Chapman from the Cherry Park Neighbourhood Association Cherry Park Festival.
All
Today,
right.
mouthful. Debbie, welcome to the Civic Hub.
Thank you for having me.
Very welcome. Cherry Park is probably the first festival, neighbourhood festival, that I heard about. How long has it been going?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna go back to the revival of the Neighbourhood Association itself. So
Okay.
it was kind of dormant for several years, and in 2007, a group of us got together and revived the Neighbourhood Association, and it was kind of an interesting revival because there had been several break-ins in the neighborhood and people were concerned, and so there was a meeting, a community meeting held at a local school, and the police were there and the city officials were there and the neighborhood people were there, and out of that, we created the Cherry Park Neighbourhood Association, the new version of it.
Right.
And there were some people that wanted to just patrol the streets, and others of us wanted to do something more community-based, and so we created the Neighbourhood Association. And it started very simply, and there were, I think, 3 of us that sort of gathered to start the Neighbourhood Association, and it grew from there. And the first Cherry Festival was actually held in 2008. And this was, again, a few of us that decided, Ralph Gassmeyer, I'll give him credit for the idea. He suggested, why don't we do a cherry festival? It's Cherry Park after all. And so we started the festival at that point, and it was in the entrance to Cherry Park. I don't know if you're familiar with the park, but...
I've been through a couple of times, yeah.
So on the Strange Street entrance side of the park is where we first gathered the first year. So it was all outside of the park. It was just in a sort of green space in front of St. John's Church and school. And we sold cherries and had music, right? So it was very simple and very, I think we had 3 canopies, and we had recycle cycles come and set up. And we also, I think from the very beginning, if I'm not mistaken, we had an artist do a painted chair. So this was the Cherry Chair, and this is going to be part of an auction, a fundraising event. And the Cherry Chair was a thing for many years. We don't do it anymore. The Neighbourhood Association doesn't do it anymore. But it was a cool addition and feature of the festival. So the first year, as I said, it was in the entrance to the park. The second year, we then sort of moved into the park and had kids' activities done in the park rather than on the outside. But still, it was very small scale. We had cherries and cherry pop and water. Oh, cherry blossoms. Yeah, that was the other thing that we sold. So part of it was to make a bit of money for the Neighbourhood Association. So one thing that's kind of unique about Cherry Park Neighbourhood Association is we don't have a home. Some neighbourhood associations, we don't have a community centre.
Oh.
So, which puts us at somewhat of a disadvantage when it comes to events and just community outreach, because we can't say to somebody, come to our meetings or come to our centre and, get to meet more people. So most of these meetings are held, during the earlier years, they were all held in my house around the kitchen table, right? And now they're held in somebody else's house. But so it's we are able to store the things that we use for the Cherry Festival at the Victoria Hills Community Centre. But we don't, we run some programs out of there, but it's not our community centre.
Right.
It's the Victoria Hills Neighbourhood Association that run most of the programs out of that facility. Right. So anyways, so that was the second year. We started to expand a bit and move outside of the of the, well, go into the park and not just do it on the periphery of the park. So, yeah, do you want me to just keep talking?
That's great, because that's telling us exactly how the Cherry Park Festival came to be.
Yeah, that was the beginning. Very basic.
And how's it today, or how was it this past year? Because we've missed the festival this year already.
Yeah, it's in July. It's always in July.
We're in the middle of September as we're recording this.
Yeah, so we do it in July because that's when the cherry harvest time is.
Right.
In fact, in earlier years, we actually would hop in the car and go down to, I can't even tell you where, but south of here, pick up the cherries and bring them back.
Okay. No cherry trees in Cherry Park?
There are some, but not enough for the needs of the festival.
Okay.
So yeah, now we buy them locally. I'm not sure if it's through Hurley's or what company. I know sometimes we bought them through Sobeys. So the source of the cherries themselves has changed over the years just because of the demand.
Right.
One of the biggest features that the Neighbourhood Association actually contributes to the festival, aside from pulling it all together, is they have an All Things Cherry tent. And in the All Things Cherry tent, they sell cherry pies, cherry tarts, cherry strudels, cherries, cherry pop. I think that's mostly what it is right now. And everything we sell, and there's a huge sale of ice cream, cherry ice cream, but other flavors as well. But and also cherry jam and cherry cookies. I've got my list here. So that's a big fundraiser for the city. But all of the pies and all of the baked goods are from bakeries around the city. So Hillcrest Bakery was one of the sources. Floridale Bakery was a provider for years, and then it became more difficult for them to provide for the festival. So at this year's festival, they sold 500 pies.
My goodness.
Yeah. So it's huge. It takes over the whole park. The festival, there are 2 stages.
Two now.
The main stage, which hosts different local musicians. And the stage at the back of the park, which is usually acoustic or dance. I noticed this year they had some dance groups performing. This year they had wrestling. What's it called?
Wrestling?
Well, I don't know what it's called. They had a boxing ring or something, or a wrestling ring set up in the middle of the park. We've had everything from horses, like horse rides that you could go around. This year they stopped doing that. It became a bit more difficult to do that with the people that were providing the horses. There's a cherry train that goes around the park. And, you have to pay for these things, but it's like $1 or something a ride, so it's not an expensive
contributions
outing
towards the neighborhood association.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's not a big. I mean, we raise funds, but it's not a huge. There's not a huge profit to anything.
Because I imagine that there's a whole bunch of expenses.
Yeah, you have to rent.
Hiring somebody to run a train, to bring a train into the park, because that's not a regular feature there.
Right. So there's also rock climbing, like these rock climbing things. They're just,
You've had some
huge. Yeah.
pretty spectacular bands come into play as well.
Yeah. I'm not sure the names of all the bands.
I remember a few years ago, I was helping out at a concert must have had this Cherry Festival on a Sunday, because the band members said, "Oh yeah, we've just come from the Cherry Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, are we full!"
Yeah.
So they must have been eating cherry pie.
They also have an antique car show.
Oh really?
Yeah. So cars will come in and line up, and
that can't be in the park though.
Yeah.
It's in the park.
Yeah, it's in the park as well. Yeah. So no, it's there are food trucks. In the past, there weren't always food trucks. Like when we first began, we would provide the food, like we would sell food. But now it's all done by food trucks. Aside from the All Things Cherry booth and the ice cream, which are still run by the Neighbourhood Association.
Right.
And we get over 100 volunteers in the day of the festival.
Okay.
And we probably started out with 20 volunteers, right?
So 20 volunteers is still a pretty big event.
Yeah.
I've been at places where there's only the 5 or 6 volunteers to put on a whole event. So a 20 volunteer event is plenty big, and
Right.
100 volunteers is something spectacular.
Yeah. We also have auction sales, so we get donations from different companies around the city and the region,
Okay.
and there's an auction, like a silent auction, set up.
Yeah.
There's a kids area where they have, sometimes they have face painting and or clowns doing balloons, or like it changes every year a bit.
Okay.
But it's a great day,
Yeah.
and the park gets packed.
Yeah. How many
So-
people do you figure came in July?
Probably around 6,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like not all at the same time.
No, it's
No,
spread
no,
out over
okay,
the day.
good.
And the last couple of years, we've had nice weather, which is really important for the festival. Otherwise, there's no rain day and there's no going indoors. So
No.
if it rains, then
Yeah, and you enjoy the park in the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. When does the festival take place? What time of day?
It starts, I think, at 10 in the morning and goes
Okay.
till 4 or 5.
4 or 5. Okay.
And there are vendors also of different sorts that
Okay.
take up the center part of the park. I think 75 vendors.
Okay. Community groups with their information tables.
There's like the waste management. I know always has a booth there. I think REAP puts up a booth there. So yeah, there are information booths and also
Okay.
just people selling their goods.
I think that's a word.
It is in Spanish.
Yeah.
So it's grown a lot. It's a fun day. I remember in the earlier days too, we used to get even the food donated for the volunteers. So the volunteer area was set up in somebody's backyard who backs onto the park, and we would get hot dogs donated or
Okay.
chicken from, I'm not even sure where. I think Ralph looked after that one, but I think it's come a long way since then. We probably use more M&M's pre-cooked things for the volunteers, just because
Right.
it's safer,
Yeah.
for public health. And
And-
public health is, everything has to go through them
Yes.
to ensure that things are done properly. And
I imagine there is a lot of paperwork with insurance and fire safety and
Yeah.
all those things.
yeah, everything has to be approved before it happens.
Yeah. Do you
And
find-
the city, the Neighborhood Association gets a Tier 2 grant for the festival every year, but they also provide in-kind support by, garbage cans on the day of,
Okay.
the bringing in and the removal of the garbage cans.
You have any issues with closing streets? Is it big enough that it spills out onto the street that you have to close?
Nope.
No, not yet, huh?
No, and
That's coming.
Yeah, the nice part too is that there's a parking lot up on Dominion Street that's sort of on the other side of the railway track, if you're familiar with the park, and the owners of the parking lot have always been very willing to
Okay.
allow festival goers to park there.
Yes, they don't
And-
have much need for the parking lot on the weekend.
Right. And even, I think there's an arrangement, maybe I better not say it because I'm not sure if that still is the case, with other parking lots in the immediate area.
Okay.
So-
getting a lot of cooperation from the other establishments in the neighborhood to
Yeah.
make the Cherry Festival a success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the volunteers love it, right? They love being outdoors
Yeah.
and it's a very active event. Bouncy castles too, I didn't mention, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all contributing back to the neighborhood where they live. So,
Right.
it makes things better for everyone.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not a huge money maker. Like it's not like you walk out with $10,000 in your pocket, but it's more the bringing the community together.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way we've always sort of looked at it. Just to bring that park alive,
Right.
bring it to life, because it's mostly for baseball, and there's a nice little play area there for kids, like one of these gym type things. But
Yeah.
other than that, it's people with their dogs.
Having it in July is fairly early in the summer.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's good to have it earlier so that people know that the park is there and come back to the park for just park-like things?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it was more around the harvest of the cherries. That's how the date was chosen. So it was a good time to get cherries.
And of course, the name of the neighborhood there, which
Yeah.
is emblazoned on some of the wayfinding poles around the park.
Yeah. So you hear of strawberry festivals or strawberry picnics, but you don't often hear of a cherry event like this. So it's it's kind of unique in that way, and I think it's come to be a go-to place for many people.
Yeah.
And we promote it in the schools. We have
Okay.
posters that go up around the city.
Okay.
So
Next year, send us a public service announcement, and we'll stick it on the radio for you
we'll do that.
and help you out that way.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
Mhm.
That would be great. Maybe some of the organizing committee members could come and talk to you then and give it a 2-minute plug.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you have for other neighborhood communities that want to set up an event like this? You'll probably not start off with something like a railway.
Yeah.
But,
I think you start small and you
Mhm.
see where it goes. And you know, you work with the people that have the same mindset and wanting to see this advance. And if we had started off filling the park, it probably would have failed. So it started very small, and
Okay.
it took several years before it's now in its 16th year. This year was the 16th
one
year.
of the longer running ones. Hmm.
Yeah, and there's always new people that want to be part of the organizing of it, and that's important.
Yeah.
And we always make a point of thanking our volunteers. So there's a volunteer appreciation event
good.
that usually happens at the end of the year, and we bring
Separate from the festival itself.
yeah, and we invite all the volunteers that were part of the festival and volunteers that have helped with the neighborhood association over the year. And so
Yeah.
it's I think that's really important, because without the volunteers, things would not happen.
Yeah. So now that you've had the summer off, when do you start up with the planning and preparing for next year?
Yeah, it will start immediately.
Already?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
'Cause
what's the first thing that needs to be done?
Well, just getting a committee together. So just to be clear, I'm kind of on the sidelines now. I mean, I was
Oh.
part of the earlier organizing of it for the first few years.
Yeah. Pass the torch?
Well, I'm a city councillor, so
Ah.
my attention is there. But I continue to support
Yeah.
the neighborhood association in any way that I can. But it's carrying it on, like starting to get together, setting a date, and just trying to get things in place, because you've got to recruit those bands, you've got to start advertising for the vendors. So it's months of work, right?
Right.
And the neighborhood association will create a committee, and they'll kind of run with it.
Okay.
And
yeah.
even donations for the silent auction. So everything takes time.
Right.
And getting the permits, right? Applying
Yeah.
for the money, right? So that's probably the first thing, is getting the two-tiered grant
Right.
into the city.
Right. Have you
Yeah.
found that being a councillor has hindered your involvement in the Cherry Park Festival? Is it
Yeah,
a
I'm not
conflict
on
of
the-
interest?
Well, I just feel it's, so I don't just represent the Cherry Park area. My
Right.
ward is much bigger. So it would be, I mean, I certainly always attend, and I've actually volunteered at the event. But I'm not on the organizing committee, because
Okay.
there's so many events that go on.
Yeah.
Not just in Cherry Park, but there's Mill Cortland area,
Right.
Schneider Creek, Victoria Park. So all of those are in my ward. So I can't possibly be on the organizing committee of all the
No.
events that go on. So I try to attend as many of the events that I can, but yeah, that's mostly my involvement now.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to see the rest of the ward, the rest of the city,
Yeah.
and how they operate. So
Yeah, you learn things from everyone. I mean, they're the volunteers and the neighborhood associations. I've always said they're the specialists,
Yeah.
right? They know what they're doing. They know what their neighborhoods need. So.
Yeah.
The Cherry Park also, since we're talking about Cherry Park, they also hold a cleanup barbecue in the spring and a corn social in the fall.
Okay.
So both of those are free to anyone who may attend, and they're well attended. I was
is
at
that the same Cherry Park organizers, or is it just an overlap of people?
No, it's still the Cherry Park Neighborhood Association, but
Okay.
it's not necessarily the Cherry Festival people that do it, although there certainly is an overlap.
Yeah.
The Cherry, the corn roast or corn social is held in Gildner Green, which is up behind Belmont on Glasgow and the Iron Horse Trail, kind of in that area,
Okay.
behind Tim Hortons. And on Belmont, the Tim Hortons on Belmont.
Oh, I know little
Yeah,
spot,
there's a
little
little
triangle
park.
spot. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it was packed this year. It's on Labor Day, so
Okay.
it was a great turnout, and it's free food, and they ask for donations if people are able.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, again, an opportunity to get people together and bring the park alive.
Yeah.
The other one is the corn roast, which is held in the spring, and that's usually held at Raddatz Park, which is on Gage Street near the Iron Horse Trail. So, it's nice to see all these
things
parks
happening
used.
there.
Yeah. So it's a very active neighborhood association. It'd be great if there was a community space that they could call their own, but that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Need to get somebody to advocate to City Council for that.
I try.
Yeah. People want to get involved.
Yeah.
Who would they get a hold of? And how would they get involved?
Yeah, so the Cherry Park Neighborhood Association has social media accounts. They could certainly come through me, and I could put them in touch with the right people. I don't know the email addresses right now.
We'll put some contact information in the show notes on civichubwr.org, and they can find out all about your organization and the other people that we've interviewed in the past. Yeah, looking at the website, lots of information there. I'm quite sure that there's all the contact information available on the Cherry Park Festival website as well.
Yeah.
cherryparkkitchener.com.
Yeah. So, I mean, people are always welcome to help out. And, You
get a lot of turnover of the volunteers. I mean, it's 100 volunteers. I can't imagine they've all been there since the start.
No. I mean, you have your core group of people that are pretty stable, but then certainly the volunteers on the day of the event, we get a lot of students that want to get in volunteer hours. So, we welcome them to join us.
Yeah.
You get university students who are just wanting to, integrate into the community in one way or another, and you get, people of all ages.
Is there a big student population in the Cherry Park neighborhood?
Probably no more than anywhere else.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we've got KCI close by. We've got the primary schools, but KCI is the only high school in that area.
I'm thinking it's an older, well-established neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking people have lived there forever.
Yeah.
And so
I kind of feel like I've lived there forever, but it hasn't been forever.
No. But you get comfortable in a good neighborhood like that. And so you want to get involved in the activities like the festival.
Yeah.
And that's a reason to stay put.
Yeah. And there are always friendly faces around.
Yeah.
And one thing that the creation, the revival of the neighborhood association and the events that are held is you walk through the streets and you know people and you see them here and you see them there, and it really does feel like a welcoming place, right? That you're part of. It feels that you're not just in a neighborhood where maybe the houses are spread apart and you don't know your neighbors, or like it does.
Or even worse, the vertical towers where nobody knows each other.
Right, that's a different,
People starting to build some community in the vertical communities as well.
Yeah.
So that people, will at least smile and nod at each other in the hallways.
Yeah.
That's something that in the past when I've lived in apartments never happened,
Right.
Avoid
it can
eye
be
contact at all costs,
Yeah, certainly can be challenging, yeah.
So what's up next? What will you be doing for the Cherry Park Festival in the following year, the coming year?
Well, as far as I know, it's a go. So, like I said, I think the next step is to start applying for funding, and when you apply for funding, the application that you fill out sort of forces you to think about what's going to go where and what you need and all of the pieces to pull the festival off. So I'm not part of that process anymore. I remember working with Ralph in the earlier years, and we had great support from the city as well to fill out those applications. But it's a job.
It's a job.
It's a job.
Well, I hope that the Cherry Festival continues on for a long time.
Thank you.
You can always do some more cherry pie.
The cherry pies are to die for. They are delicious. I'm not a big pie person, but every year I'll get my cherry pies, and they are very, very good. And they're like I said, from local bakeries, so they're not frozen pies from the local grocery stores.
Right.
Yeah.
Fresh cherry pies. Probably in early July again in 2025?
Yeah.
Okay, stay tuned to the website, cherryparkkitchener.com, and then you'll be able to see what's going on for the coming year.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Debbie Chapman from the Cherry Park Festival, thank you so much for coming in, and welcome to the Civic Hub.
Thank you. great space.
You've been listening to Welcome to the Civic Hub, where we welcome community partners to the Civic Hub. The Civic Hub is online at civichubwr.org. You can reach the Civic Hub by email at civichub@waterlooregion.org. Welcome to the Civic Hub is produced at the studio of CKMS-FM 102.7 Radio Waterloo. The show is sponsored by the Social Development Center of Waterloo Region. The executive producer is Alexander Petrovich. Ritika Sharmali is the producer and host, and I'm Bob Jonkman. Civic Hub is supported by the Region of Waterloo Upstream Fund. The theme music is A Good Bass by Kumiko from the Free Music Archive and used under Creative Commons CC0 license.